Master Sergeant George A. Fernandez. Sergeant First Class John Edward Taylor. Sergeant First Class Mitchell A. Lane. Master Sergeant Kevin N. Moorhead. Sergeant First Class William M. Bennett. Lieutenant Colonel Charles H. Bury. Staff Sergeant Paul A. Sweeney. Sergeant Roy A. Wood. Master Sergeant Kelly L. Hornbeck. Master Sergeant Richard L. Ferguson. Sergeant Major Michael B. Statt. CW2 Bruce E. Price. Captain Daniel W. Eggers. Sergeant First Class Robert J. Mogeson.
Specialist Joseph A. Jeffries. Major Paul R. Syverson. Sergeant First Class Robert K. McGee. Staff Sergeant Paul C. Martis. Captain Michael Ur Talafsky. Staff Sergeant Aaron N. Holliman. Staff Sergeant Robert S. Goodwin. Staff Sergeant Tony B. Olaes. Sergeant First Class Pedro A. Munoz. Sergeant Jeremy R. Wright. Sergeant First Class Mikey E. Zwan. Sergeant First Class Alan C. Johnson. Sergeant First Class Stephen M. Langmack. Captain Charles D. Robinson. Staff Sergeant Leroy E. Alexander. Sergeant First Class Victor H. Cervantes. Staff Sergeant Christopher N. Piper. Master Sergeant Michael L. McNulty. Master Sergeant Robert M. Horrigan. Sergeant Jason T. Palmerton. Sergeant First Class Brett E. Walden. Staff Sergeant Christopher M. Fockel. Captain Jeremy A. Chandler. Master Sergeant Ivica Jarak. Sergeant First Class Trevor John Dissing.
Sergeant First Class Obadiah J. Lowett. Staff Sergeant Gary R. Harper, Jr. Staff Sergeant Matthew A. Kimmel. Major Jeffrey P. Oskowski. Sergeant First Class James S. Oshner. Master Sergeant Anthony R. C. Yost. Master Sergeant Joseph J. Andres, Jr. Staff Sergeant Eamon A. Taha. Sergeant First Class Lance S. Gornett. Sergeant First Class Chad A. Gonzalez. Staff Sergeant Edwin H. Daza Chacon. Sergeant Alberto D. Montron. Master Sergeant Emendo E. Alzares. Sergeant First Class Christopher L. Robinson. Sergeant First Class Richard J. Herma. Staff Sergeant Christian Longsworth. Sergeant First Class Daniel B. Crabtree. Master Sergeant Thomas D. Mahalik. Staff Sergeant Eric Caban. Chief Warrant Officer Scott W. Dyer. Sergeant Daniel W. Weingart. Staff Sergeant Q. H. Cha. Sergeant First Class William R. Brown. Sergeant First Class Tong Nguyen. Sergeant Dustin M. Atkins.
Sergeant Marco L. Miller. CW3 Herschel D. McCants, Jr. Staff Sergeant Michael D. Thomas. Sergeant Timothy P. Badgett. Sergeant Major Bradley D. Connor. Staff Sergeant Joshua R. Whitaker. Master Sergeant Arthur L. Lilly. Sergeant First Class Nathan L. Winder. Staff Sergeant Robert L. Gruffing. Staff Sergeant Jesse G. Clowers. Sergeant First Class Jeffrey D. Kettle. Staff Sergeant Robert R. Pirelli. Sergeant First Class Adrian M. Elizalde. Sergeant First Class Michael J. Tolley. Sergeant First Class Justin S. Munsky. Staff Sergeant Joseph F. Carreri. Major Jeffrey R. Calero. Captain Benjamin D. Tefner. Staff Sergeant Patrick F. Kuchbach. Staff Sergeant Ryan D. Masith. Staff Sergeant Justin R. Whiting. Staff Sergeant Robert J. Miller. Staff Sergeant William R. Neal. Sergeant Nicholas A. Robertson. Staff Sergeant Jason L. Brown.
Staff Sergeant Frank Gasper. Sergeant First Class David Nunez. Staff Sergeant Travis Hunsberger. Sergeant First Class Jeffrey Morales. Master Sergeant Sean Simmons. Sergeant James Treber. Master Sergeant Mitchell Young. Captain Richard G. Cliff, Jr. Sergeant First Class Gary G. Vasquez. Sergeant First Class Jamie S. Nicholas. Staff Sergeant David W. Textor. Sergeant Nicholas A. Casey. Staff Sergeant Joshua R. Townsend. Staff Sergeant Mark J. Small. Staff Sergeant Jeremy Besa. Master Sergeant David Hurt. CW2 Douglas M. Vos III. Sergeant First Class Alejandro Grenada. Captain Ronald George Bruce Jr. Sergeant First Class Severin West Summers III. Captain John Tinsley. Sergeant First Class William B. Woods Jr. Staff Sergeant Andrew Thomas Lobosco. Sergeant First Class Bradley Bole. Sergeant First Class Sean McCloskey. Staff Sergeant Joshua M. Mills. Sergeant First Class Christopher D. Shaw. Staff Sergeant Jack Mayfield Martin III. Staff Sergeant Keith R. Bishop. Sergeant First Class David E. Metzger. Sergeant First Class Dwayne Anthony Thornsbury. Staff Sergeant Matthew A. Pacino. Staff Sergeant Rusty Hunter Christian. Captain David J. Thompson. Master Sergeant Mark W. Coleman. Sergeant Andrew James Creighton. Captain Jason E. Holbrook. Staff Sergeant Kyle R. Warren. Master Sergeant Jared N. Van Alst. Sergeant First Class Ronald A. Grouder. Sergeant First Class Calvin B. Harrison. Sergeant First Class Day Han Park. Master Sergeant Benjamin Franklin Bidner. Sergeant First Class Martin R. Apolinar. Sergeant Aaron J. Blasio. Captain Joseph W. Schultz. Sergeant First Class Wyatt A. Goldsmith. Master Sergeant Benjamin A. Stevenson. Captain Wade Chip Ramsey. Master Sergeant Daniel Adams.
Staff Sergeant Michael W. Hosey. Sergeant First Class Benjamin D. Weiss. Staff Sergeant Andrew Trevor Britton Hillo. Staff Sergeant Brandon Forrest Eagleston. Staff Sergeant Brandon R. Pepper. Master Sergeant Gregory Ray Trent. Staff Sergeant Jeremy S. Border. Sergeant First Class Riley Jean Stevens. Sergeant First Class Aaron A. Henderson. Warrant Officer Joseph Lee Shiro. Staff Sergeant Justin Cameron Marquez. Sergeant First Class Ryan J. Savard. Chief Warrant Officer 2 Michael S. Duskin. Staff Sergeant Daniel T. Lee. Captain Andrew Michael Pedersen Keel. Sergeant First Class James F. Grissom. Staff Sergeant Michael H. Simpson. Warrant Officer Sean W. Mullen. Sergeant Stephen M. New. Master Sergeant George Allen Banner, Jr. Sergeant Joseph J. Strickland. Staff Sergeant Timothy R. McGill. Sergeant First Class Liam J. Nevins. Staff Sergeant Patrick H. Quinn. Staff Sergeant Richard Lee Vasquez.
Staff Sergeant Alex A. Viola. Specialist Christopher Andrew Landis. Specialist John A. Pelham. Sergeant First Class Roberto C. Skelt, Jr. Captain Johnson Benjamin Jones. Staff Sergeant Jason McDonald. Staff Sergeant Scott Studenmont. Staff Sergeant Gerard Gass, Jr. Sergeant First Class Andrew T. Weathers. Sergeant First Class Michael A. Cathcart. Staff Sergeant Matthew Ammerman. First Sergeant Peter McKenna. Master Sergeant Joshua L. Wheeler. Sergeant First Class Matthew McClintock. Staff Sergeant Matthew Vale Thompson. Staff Sergeant Adam S. Thomas. Sergeant First Class Ryan Allen Lawyer. Major Andrew David Byers. Sergeant First Class Matthew Charles Lowland. Staff Sergeant Kevin Joseph McEnroe. Staff Sergeant James Francis Majority. Sergeant First Class Robert R. Boniface. Staff Sergeant Aaron Red Butler. Staff Sergeant Mark R. de Alencar. Staff Sergeant Logan Melgar.
Sergeant First Class Jeremiah Johnson. Staff Sergeant Dustin Wright. Staff Sergeant Ryan Black. Sergeant LaDavid Johnson. Sergeant First Class Mihail Golan. Sergeant First Class Stephen Cribben. Staff Sergeant Alexander W. Conrad. Sergeant First Class Raymond Transfiguration. Sergeant First Class Christopher Hartsaw. Major Barnes. Master Sergeant William Carlson. Master Sergeant Dane Peresi. Maggie May. Staff Sergeant Jason LaFleur. Sergeant Major William Lubers. Major Keith Butler. Sergeant First Class James Genus III. Master Sergeant Donnie Barger. Sergeant First Class J. Ott. Specialist Irish B. Hash. CW3 Jason Thomas. Sergeant First Class Joe Mitchell. Sergeant First Class Keith Martell. Warrant Officer 1 Keith Thomas, and CW2, Dwayne Cantrell. At this time, can I have everybody stand as we have them perform the Ballad of the Green Beret? Please face the flag.
I'm sure many of you know that this ballad was written by Staff Sergeant Barry Sadler in honor of Green Beret James Gabriel Jr.
Gabriel was the first native Hawaiian to be killed during Vietnam. He was executed by the Viet Cong during a training mission in April of 1962.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret.
Silver wings upon their chest. These are men, America's best. 100 men will test today, but only 3 win the Green Beret. Trained to live off nature's land, trained in combat, hand to hand, men who fight both night and day, courage peak from the Green Beret. Silver wings upon their chests. These are men, America's best. 100 men will test today, but only 3 win the Green Beret. Back at home, our young wife waits. Her Green Beret has met his fate. He has died for those oppressed,
Leaving her his last request.
put silver wings on my son's chest. Make him one of America's best. He'll be a man they'll test one day. Have him win the Green Beret.
We all want to say thank you. That was amazing.
We want to say thank you.
Yeah, it's our pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Woo!
Thank you.
This is our patch that we do for our dedication. And we do a parking space dedication where we dedicate them for fallen soldiers and first responders. So I want to give that to you.
Thank you.
It's a brand new patch.
Thank you.
And for you, we've got you a bracelet where we have our Special Forces crest on there
Oh my God.
and the 1st Ranger Battalion Ranger tag on there that you can wear. So thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
guys
you.
so much.
Thank everybody for coming out. Also, they're going to take a 10-minute break, but they also have a show to perform for us. We have Kickback Jacks has wings over there, so feel free to
They
eat
get
some.
go first.
Yeah. and Thai Peppers next door also. And let's just give them 10 minutes and thank them, and we'll see you next show. Thank you all.